Hello, I'm Mike, I'm from Hot Clay. I'm going to talk about the IKON kiln, particularly how the kiln will arrive, all the features of the kiln and how to set up for your first firing. The kiln will arrive on a pallet. The wheels will be prevented from movement by having some blocks front and back. It will be banded to the pallet, and there will be a box underneath the kiln in which your kiln furniture and 2 manuals will be in there. Those are your extras to go with the kiln, as well as the controller arm and the controller. So there's a little bit to fix to the kiln. Obviously, when you've cut the banding off the pallet, you'll need to lift the kiln. You need to do this with someone else, and obviously just be aware that there will be a weight bias towards the back of the kiln, so one either side, and with gloves on, if you can lift following sort of like sensible manual handling procedure, and take it off the pallet. As you'll notice, the kiln itself is on substantial wheels, so it can move over sort of flat ground, but I would advise not taking it over rough ground or grass or something like that. So I would lift it over something like that. So but on level ground, you can move the kiln. When you get it in position, you will need to put the controller arm on by virtue of 2 screws, and then plug in the controller, which has the Hartling socket. The kiln has a nice lid movement by virtue of these gas struts, and it's nice and strong, so it's long lasting. There is a recess lid which sits neatly into the inside of that chamber, almost giving it a seal. You have the Stafford controller, which is a nice solid controller, very intuitive, very easy to use, and you have that additional paddle down this side where it's the air inlet where the air will go in. That's already fixed onto the kiln. The wheels are very strong, almost the kind that you get on a shopping trolley, so really nice and robust and useful, and will move in 360 degrees. And on the back of the kiln, you've got the lovely element housing box, which is where you would change your elements without going into the electrical part of the kiln, which makes things so much easier for hobby potters. And it also keeps the electrics really cool. For positioning the kiln, first do up your latches. There's one on either side of the kiln. And if you then use the handle and a little bit of support at the back and position it, I would say about sort of like 30 to 40 centimeters away from the wall is a good position, allowing good airflow around the kiln. Once your kiln is in position and you're happy with that, you can lock your wheels to prevent the kiln going for a walk. You can undo your latches on the kiln lid and raise that and make sure you've got enough room. And if that's all well and good, you can then plug in your kiln. If you take your controller, and there's a switch underneath, the controller will run through a few checks, and then we'll have the ambient temperature, and you're ready to go. Inside your box, which comes with the kiln, you will get a kiln furniture set, which comprises of shelves, which are 36.5 centimeters wide. You will get a set of 4 props. You get 3 times 25, 3 times 50, 3 times 75, and 3 times 100. And these will be placed inside your kiln, ready for your first dry firing. So with the 3 smallest props, if you place these in a triangular shape in the kiln, I generally try and avoid the thermocouple, and that will be your base props, and then place in your kiln shelf, carefully avoiding the thermocouple, which is sticking out a little bit, and then place in the next lot, but make sure that the props follow in a line and they're not in a different place. And the next kiln shelf, and lastly all the remaining props. And then you'll be ready for your first dry firing. And you would close the lid, put your locks down, your latches down, and then you would choose program number 22 on your controller. I'm pressing the right hand arrow and all the way up to program 22. And then you would start your program by pressing the start button. Okay, while your kiln is climbing in temperature, I'll just show you about the vents. If you push your paddle forward there, it will allow airflow into the kiln. And if you open the damper on the other side open, that will allow the airflow out of the kiln. And of course, this will allow the kiln to breathe. In this particular firing, I would leave it so it's breathing throughout the whole firing. And this will reduce the moisture that's in the brickwork and in the shelves, and also oxidize your elements. Now, while I'm on the subject of venting, if this air that's coming out, I would choose a place where you're going to site the kiln, which you'll have good ventilation. So you'll need some good cold air coming into a room and the warm air going out, usually at a higher point somewhere else in the room. Because all rooms are different, and because everybody's kilns and how much you're firing will all be different, I have written a ventilation PDF which is downloadable from our website. Okay, thereafter, I mean, you should have a happy life with the kiln, but you will need to replace kiln shelves eventually. They won't last forever, and you will also need to replace elements. And I would suggest, as an average, you'll probably have 100 firings, but that is an average. Obviously, everybody fires differently to different temperatures, different loads, and different kinds of glazes, which will wear out the elements a lot quicker. What is good about this particular kiln is you can buy 3 individual elements, so you only need to replace one at a time when they go, or indeed just replace all 3 as a set. That concludes the video about the IKON V46. If you have any further questions, do email Hot Clay or call us and I'll be happy to help, but thank you for watching.